Hey, Karita Griffith Walker here, continuing a conversation about ways to stay true to the roots of a dance form when teaching it in studio settings or settings that may not be traditional, right? So I focus a lot on Black dance forms, and so that's what I will do today. Um, I want to continue the conversation. First, in a previous video, we talked a lot about a general culture of community in our classes. And if you haven't checked that out, look back at that previous video about that. But today we're going to talk about a particular community activity that we can be doing, and that is improvisation. So when we think about Black dance forms, we think about improv, right? Spontaneity, in the culture of creation. And it's really important for us as dance educators to include that in our classes, right? So it's funny for me to be talking about improv because I've had so much improv anxiety in my career as a performer, but I will tell you that I never have wavered on including it in my classes as a teacher, right? It never stopped me from including it in my class as a teacher. So I want to talk about a couple of reasons why I think improv is important for our students, and about a couple of reasons why I think it's not happening as much as it could. So first, just to reiterate some reasons why I think it's important, besides the general idea of it being a community fostering kind of thing, I think that it adds something to the nature of a class when you have something like this that's organic and not planned. Right? Because you can set out the space, and create the space for it, but something unique will happen in that improvisational space, right? I can tell you as a performer, I performed in Dorrance dance or other tap dance environments where improvisation is a part of the game, right? Anytime you're dancing by yourself, if you go to a tap show or if you see tap dancers, anytime they're dancing by themselves, they're usually doing improvisation, right? There is something magical about that. And I can, say from experience of sitting backstage and watching, doing the Blues Project, for example, with Dorrance Dance, and watching the soloists in the show, Derek Grant, Michelle Dorrance, Dormisha, and knowing and even dancing it myself, but and doing my own improv, but just knowing that I'm witnessing something in the show that is happening this one time and it'll never happen this way again. Right. And so it made each run of the show, each version of the Blues Project a little bit different because there was these improvisational moments in the show, not just from the three soloists, but even from those of us that were in the ensemble of the show that made it organic, and that every audience that came to see it was kind of coming to see a shooting star, if you will, that would be seen for that moment, and that exact experience wouldn't happen again, right? And so I think that that's really cool, especially when you give that frame to your students. It can really help them to know that they're creating this kind of shooting star moment in class, right? And that's something you can't get from like the YouTube channel class or whatever. That's something you can get in your class, a community experience they can get in your class. It sets you apart, sets your class experience apart. Um, and, contrast that with Rockettes, right? I was a Rockette for almost 5 years, and that's a place where you do the exact same show every single time without variation. The variations happened with like a shoe fell off, right? Like something like that, or something went wrong with a click track, like there was like a technical glitch or something. Like that would be like the improvisational moment in the show. But beyond that, you delivered the exact same product every time, and you would have to kind of dig in a different place to find really strong energy to continue to bring to the stage, but you were literally creating almost that replicated experience for the audience every time. There are some people who love that, by the way. There's people who came and saw the Christmas Spectacular, go and see it multiple times to see that exact thing, right? To see it multiple times, even inside of one season. But I think that especially when we're dealing with Black dance forms, that there is something about that shooting star experience of a cipher, right? And we can give that to our students in our classes, right? So you think about the way that so many of these forms originated. It was in these circle up kinds of moments. You can look at video people dancing in Guinea right now, like out on the street. Like there's this improvisational collective stuff happening, right? That creates this unique experience in the moment. So I think those are some reasons why I think it's very special and it's very important for us to include it in the classes. It's the way that these dance forms originated, largely, and it's a part of the tradition of the forms. And it also brings an organic nature to your class. So if your classes are ever feeling stale, right? If you feel like you're looking to mix it up, one way to do that, obviously, is to have that improvisational stuff happening in your classes, right? 'Cause that creates that shooting star kind of experience. So I want to talk now about a couple of reasons that I have heard from teachers about why the improv isn't happening. So reason number one is that teachers don't like it. The dance teacher themselves says, I don't like improv, therefore I'm not including it in my jazz class, I'm not including it in my hip hop class, I'm not including it in my tap class, whatever. I'm not, I don't like it, therefore I don't teach it, right? So I want us to think again about um, create the experience that we're creating for our students. As somebody who personally had, anxiety about doing improv myself, I still had to think beyond myself about the experience that I wanted my students to have, right? And so, how could I get out of the way of that and coach them towards something else? Right. And so I wanted to just encourage anybody out there who has any of that feeling about improv that I've had, to reach beyond it and think about cultivating an experience for your students. Now, there's all kinds of choices that you can make as a teacher in an improvisational setting. I don't recommend sitting it out. uh, there's ways that you can do it and, just let your um, I say this a lot to my tap teachers in my tap teacher training program that it's like a lab, right? And so I tell people like it's a lab, right? You think of like put your goggles on, we're going in. And sometimes stuff blows up in the lab, okay? That's nature of the thing, right? That's the nature of the thing. And so if it doesn't go right, that's a part of the thing. And so we're looking to continue to reach beyond that. So there's ways that you can continue to coach, and encourage your students around improv, create the space, and participate, in a limited way, but in a way like be engaged in the process without feeling like you have to be perfect. And I think that's where a lot of us get tripped up, is in that place. And for me, the best thing that I could do was fake it till I made it, like so to speak. I actually do better with improvisation in my classes than I do on stage a lot of times because I just tell myself there's no room for me to be anything but on. There's no, and this it's kind of a weird thing to say because as a performer, I'm always trying to be on. But like as a teacher, it's not about me. I gotta fake it or make it. I gotta do it for these kids. And I'm, looking at my students or looking at the adults and saying, I have to do it for them. And I don't know. I just am able to move past some things and not feel, that same pressure. And I'm able to actually deliver a little bit better sometimes in my classes. So I just want you to think beyond your preference around it, whether you're afraid of it or you just don't like it or whatever it is. But think beyond that, and get creative about ways that you can bring this gift to your students and cultivate this experience for your students. You may have students, this is the second reason, you may have students that are afraid to improvise, right? They're terrified of improvisation, right? So that's okay. What's not okay, I believe, is that we change our classes entirely to meet that fear, right? So we're going to alter our pedagogy, alter our curriculum to meet that fear and to let our students stay in that fear. If we had students that didn't like adagio in ballet class, I'm not so great with the adagio myself in ballet class. I'm struggling. If it was like, oh, none of the students like adage, they want everything to be fast. They want petit allegro, they want grand allegro. That nobody likes adagio. Therefore, we don't do it. No, like that's not happening, right? We are going to bring our students to that table. Okay. So, and the sooner we do it, the better, right? So, improvisation is not an advanced skill set, right? The youngest students are the best ones to start with. They're the best ones to start with. If you tell my 4-year-old that it's her turn to dance, like, watch out. I've been in classes with 4-year-olds that are like, is it my turn? It's my turn, right? So it can be there from the very beginning. it can be there from the very beginning. It should be there at the very beginning. Even if it's beginner adults, it's like, hey, this is a part of this dance class. This is a part of hip hop. This is a part of tap class, to create that experience. And I understand the fear. I think it's important for us to respect where our students are. And so, what we can do as teachers is meet them where they are and then bridge the gap to where we're going, right? So, we know that we want the class to be more and more improvisational. We bridge that gap for them. And it's like, how can we ease our students into it? What are some exercises that we can do? I do this a lot with tap teachers that just give a little structure, but still give them some space to realize that they can do it. Gives them kind of a small palette, a small canvas to work on to like get them into it. I've had to start with middle schoolers. It's like there's no worse place to start than with middle schoolers who are like awkward. Don't look at me. Da, da, you want me to go by myself? Like it's like a rough place to start. But sometimes, it's like, okay, let's do this small exercise. Here's your canvas. It's this big. Let's see what you can do with it. And then you're done. Right. And so it's like easing students into it to get them along the way from that fear. That's fine. That's okay. But get them to the place where they feel more and more comfortable with the improvisation. It's just not something we want to leave out. I mean, my goodness, I've had people in my Roots Rhythm Race and Dance program tell me that they have students in social dance classes um, that are like, we only want choreography, like in a social dance class, like in a swing dance class, you only want choreography, right? You don't want to get out there and make it happen. Like, come on, like, right? So it's like, how do we bridge that gap for our students and not just say, well, our students are scared, therefore we're taking that out of the curriculum, right? That's really, I don't think that we want to bend our programming to meet that fear. I just don't think that that's the place that we want to be. I think we can meet our students where they are and then bring them along in the process. So if we have a combination of those things, of like we're uncomfortable and our students are uncomfortable, then you've really got to sit down and maybe craft a few things that will help ease you into the water as a teacher, figure out who you want to be in that improvisational space, so that you're fully engaged in it, and then giving your students some tools to realize that they can step their toes into that water and enjoy it, right? And I can say this, just one tip for us as teachers when we're creating that space. There's um, there's the individual's experience of dancing, right? But then there's the community experience. There's the community's responsibility in a jam session, in a cipher, right? So what's everybody else doing? So the community around the dancer is supporting, is engaged, is listening, is stealing steps. You know what I mean? Like taking ideas. Like there's these other jobs that you have in the cipher, and they're all important. They're both important, right? So what you're doing outside that circle is important. What you're doing inside the circle, obviously, is important. But how you teach about both of those things, as the educator introducing improv, is important. So I want you to keep that in mind, that it's not just about helping the dancer get into the middle of the circle. It's also giving a role to everybody else who's in the space supporting that dancer. And everybody's going to want that support because everybody's going in, right? Even if you don't love it, like, I mean, gosh, you go to a wedding reception, you go to my wedding reception, everybody's getting out there, right? It's like Soul Train line is happening, you're getting in, right? So it's just a part of the thing. Even if you're small with it or whatever, like you're going to dance a little bit and the people around you are going to support. That's just a part of the culture with Black dance forms, right? And if you're wanting to stay true to the roots of the form, improv is a must. Yes, improv is a must. Whether you as a teacher don't like it or your students don't like it, right? I want you to find the ways to work past that, to dip your toes into that water as a teacher and help your students dip their toes into it, and then continue to build upon those strengths bit by bit so that they're much more comfortable with the jam session, with that cipher setting. It is that amazing shooting star experience that they can get in your classes. And what a wonderful, wonderful space that you can be providing to your students if you're not doing it already. So that's all I've got for you today. If you are looking for my starter guide about race in your dance environment. If you're looking at, you're like, what are the dynamics around race around in my dance university program, in my studio program, in my social dance program? Like, how can I, take a real good review of it? How can I take things up a notch? How can I make things better in those regards, with regard to equity and inclusivity and all of that? Grab the starter guide. You can get it by going to karitagriffith.com/start. That's karitagriffith.com/start to grab this starter guide all about race in your particular dance environment. All right. Till next time, throw a little more improv into your class. If you got 2 minutes of improv in your class, make it 4. Yes, make it 6. Yes, let's get going with it and stay true to the roots of these dance forms. All right. Have a great one.